love you very much.
Hope you get a good night's sleep. Hope you sleep all the night long. Okay?
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Brough Guitars Review. Today is going to be probably a little bit more of a serious episode. I've been waiting to talk about this for a while, just mainly because of what this guitar in particular means to me. It's very, 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 very special guitar to me. And, you know, some of us are luckier than others, are very blessed to have those people in your life to where, you know, they made a huge impact on you, and it was, you know, they're a very positive influence in your life, and as well as many others. And to have any time with those people at all, you know, just consider yourself blessed because, you know, God put them in your life, you know, for a reason. And, you know, the coolest guitars to me are always the ones that have a story. And this one isn't some elaborate, you know, story, but it is a very sentimental one to me because of whom it involved. Now, who this involved was my grandparents. You know, I called my grandmother Grammy and then my grandfather Papaw. That's, you know, they're the matriarchs of the family, and they were really the glue on my father's side. And without giving you too much, you know, backstory as far as my family and whatever, I do kind of want to give you a little bit of a backstory on, you know, who they were in particular, and just some fond memories that I have of them, because that's what makes, you know, this guitar so special and significant, you know, in my life. Growing up on my dad's side, Sundays were, I mean, the best day ever. I miss Sundays so much, and today I'm actually filming on a Sunday, and it's just not the same. Sundays have not been the same since, you know, both my grandparents passed away. And I guess that's probably in large part why I haven't really talked about this, because we all process things in our own way. But for me, I guess it's just something that I've never really had closure on, or necessarily, I guess, accepted in a way. I don't know. It's really weird, man. When you lose someone that's super impactful in your life, it's a loss that cannot be described, and I know that that's something that each of us have to go through. And my prayers are with you, my thoughts are with you, especially if you're going through things now as the holidays come near. You know, Sundays were the best day ever because Grammy would always make what was called Brough burgers, and they were the best burgers you would have ever had in your life. So good, and she would make them for the family. My cousins would come over, you know, my uncles, my aunts, my second cousins. I mean, anybody who was anybody knew to be at Grammys on Sunday. So we would go to church, and, we'd come back there and we'd watch football. We'd play euchre. For those of you in the Midwest, you know what euchre is. Cornhole. We played board games, and one of my favorite things to do ever was to play Yahtzee with my grandmother, and we would play Yahtzee religiously. And I wasn't the only person she played with, but it was a really great bonding time, specifically with her, because we got to just talk about life, or just religion, anything and everything. But it was always just super deep chats, just where our head was kind of at, and it was just a great bonding moment. And obviously I had other bonding moments with her as well, as far as watching The Price is Right, to Gilligan's Island, to going out and playing out in the yard. And then my papaw, he was a man of few words, but his actions were the things that really showed you how he really cared. And he would take me fishing, and we'd almost talk about nothing, but yet in silence it's like we communicated. And just the thought that each other's presence was there was everything. And I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. But I just really miss those times. A lot. Get myself collected here for a second. And you see, this is in large part why I haven't talked about it, because they're one of the few people besides my daughter, my parents, or my girlfriend that I would ever get emotional about. I'm not an emotional person. And this isn't me having a come to Jesus with you guys, but this is why this guitar is so meaningful to me, because my Grammy and my papaw had such a huge impact on my life. I think it goes without saying, but there's not enough words or time to sit here and explain to you guys what they meant. So without going on the tangents that I go on, and this being a whatever this is, I just go ahead and dive into the story, man. My grandmother, we would bond over Yahtzee, and whether it be helping her clean up from cooking or watching our Indiana Hoosiers. Go Hoosiers, by the way. Whether it be football, basketball, anything pro Hoosiers. We're number 2 in the country right now. Let's get this title. Let's see if we can do this. And I, large in part, wish she was still around, because, she would be just so ecstatic. She was a huge Bobby Knight fan. She loved Damon Bailey. It was Hoosiers through and through. And I adore everything about my Grammy and my papaw, and I miss them very much. But one day, Grammy and I were just sitting and talking as we would, and kind of just mentioning to her that I hadn't played guitar for a while, because I've been out here in Vegas, and I was just really kind of just itching to play guitar. And there wasn't any guitars around or guitar stores around in that part of Indiana. She lived out in the country. My grandmother and I have had conversations on and bonding moments for literal years. And one day she just said, as I brought up, man, I really want to play some guitar, she was just like, well, honey, why don't you go down the hallway? And I got 2 guitars down there. And I said, Grammy, what are you talking about? You've never brought up guitar in your life. And I've literally brought, my own to come over here and play when I lived out here and just chatted about guitar, talked about guitar. And she never, ever brought up the fact that she had 2 guitars of her own. And so I just casually just go down the hallway into her bedroom, and there was 2 cases. And as I get to the cases, there are 2. One's a all black kind of plastic case, and the other one's like this brown kind of alligator leather looking case, beat to hell. And I bring it down the hallway, and then she just goes, oh, those are Gibsons. And I said, Grammy, what are you talking about? These are Gibsons. And she said, no, those are 2 Gibsons. And the first one I opened the case to was this one. And this right here is a 1952 original, all original, a 1952 J-45. It blew my mind because I had no idea what this guitar was at first. And then I go open the other case, and it was this Gibson ES. I'll drop the title around here somewhere of what it is, especially when I find the picture. It's all on my phone. But it had like a refinish job on it. It wasn't typically usually that color stock, but looked like someone had refinished it. But it just blew my mind that she had these guitars. And so out of shock, I started obviously deep diving in the guitar, and I look at the serial number, and on the Gibson J-45 right here in the sound hole, right underneath the neck, there is a stamped serial number, and the serial number dated back to 1952. So you figure this is what? Pretty much a 70-year-old guitar. It's very old, and again, all original. try to get as much information as I could because I had to come back to Vegas. And then I went back in town maybe a couple more times, and I'd always pull out this guitar. Just shocked that she had it. So I asked my grandmother, I said, what made you get this guitar? And she said that my grandfather had apparently did some form of a trade with a worship leader at church. And I don't know if he had to sell cows or he sold some of his car parts. He always had a junkyard filled with stuff. He said that he had, made a deal with this worship leader and in turn got a couple guitars off of him. And, this was one of the two. Now, the ES guitar, my aunt has that one currently. But I really, really wanted this one just because I just thought it was such a cool story, because the fact that Grammy had this guitar for literal years. I'd never seen her pull it out or anything, but she said didn't really play it for a lot of years because back in the day she actually learned just a few chords and she would just do it for yodeling, like yodelay hee hoo, stuff like that. That was brutal. But she would yodel, I guess, to my dad and his brothers and sisters. I don't know how often she did it, but it didn't seem like she really did it a lot. But she tried picking it up, and and my papa always wanted to see Grammy happy, so he went out of his way to make sure that, she had anything she ever needed, and she never had to do without. And she took care of him and loved him, to the very end. And I'm not gonna think about that right now either. But it's just hard not to go down memory lane with this stuff because of what this guitar symbolizes and what it means to me. And so October 6, 2020, Eddie Van Halen had passed away, which, obviously you can see I'm a huge Van Halen fan. He had passed away in 2020, which is irrelevant, but also relevant in the sense because it was a year later in 2021 that my grandmother had passed away. Now, my papa had already passed away about 6 months before, and, she even called her own death. I remember she walked up to my grandfather's casket and she said, "I'll be seeing you soon." There wasn't a tear shed or anything. She later told me when we talked about it, she said that was the saddest day of her entire life. But she knew, that she was going to be seeing him again soon. And there was such a power in that moment that I'll never forget, Grammy was the sweetest person in the history of humanity, to be honest. And I always said that when she passes away, we're all absolutely screwed because that means heaven closed its gates because she's the last good thing that this earth had to offer. That happened. So she actually left this guitar to me. My dad had it for a couple years and we were finally able to ship it out. And I was really worried because, it's a vintage instrument, and up to this point, I'd never had a Gibson. I'd never owned a vintage instrument, but from my knowledge as far as like dry climate, desert, Las Vegas, hell on earth weather compared to Indiana where you could have the 4 seasons in a single day, I just wasn't exactly sure how the wood was going to react considering it's, damn near 100-year-old guitar. But, all was well, I got it. And I remember, when I had originally saw the guitar, the action was just extremely high. The bridge was kind of coming off. And I think I still have the photos. I'll try to show you here. And the back was kind of split here. But I mean, I just thought, what a beautiful, beautiful guitar. I absolutely love it. You know, is it the greatest sounding acoustic I've ever heard in my life? That's a topic for, you know, a different day and a different video. And I will touch base on that. One thing I did notice, especially, was all of the checking. As you can see there, there was just so much checking all throughout the guitar because Grammy had kept this in its, again, its original case, and she kept it right above her AC vent. So the AC vent actually came up through the floor, and it would go hot to cold, hot to cold, hot to cold, hot to cold. And that's what actually caused the lacquer to crack on the guitar. And I just thought that checking just looked so cool because, I mean, the guitar is essentially still in pristine condition. I mean, she didn't really play it, you know, so she left me a little bit of inheritance, and I took every, well, not every penny of that, but the majority of it to get the guitar restored. And I have a couple guitar people out here in Vegas, one of which that I really trusted with this guitar. And, you know, he did a fantastic job. He was able to re-glue the back and, you know, get the bridge set back and straighten the neck a little bit. Because obviously from the weather changing, just it being, you know, bajillion years old, and the abuse of just hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold over so many years, he was able to get the neck straight and everything else. So it just, it turned out absolutely fantastic. And then, you know, I kind of started going on this craze of the J-45, and, you know, it's essentially Gibson's, you know, as they say, the workhorse guitar. It was kind of supposed to be like essentially just super versatile. It was supposed to just tackle any need, and it was the traveling musician's guitar, working man's guitar. A little fun fact about the J-45, and a lot of Gibson, when it involves the numbers in the name, is actually how much the guitar was at that time. So this was, you know, $45, which would equate to whatever here in today's society. So probably not for nothing, probably still a very expensive guitar. But, you know, this was, you know, to this day, probably Gibson's best-selling acoustic and one of the best-selling acoustics of all time. And, you know, like I said, I'd never owned a vintage instrument, and, you know, I would tune this thing, and then I would come back maybe a year later, 2 years later, and it was still just, I mean, perfectly in tune, despite sitting there, again, probably in the hot and cold for, you know, a full 365 days. People have such a craze about vintage instruments and whether they're worth it or whatever. You know, I'll touch on again on that in a later video, but I just kind of wanted to just talk about this guitar and, you know, what it means to me. Again, it was a very short story, but this is an heirloom, and I'm gonna hold on to this guitar till the day I die, and then it's gonna be my daughter's. I hope she holds on to it, but it will be hers to do with what she wants when that time comes. But until then, every time I play this guitar, I think about my grandparents, and I think about all the memories that we had together, and I'm gonna do it again. And I'm just so thankful for those times, those memories. For the holiday season and any day, guys, life is too short. Any day could be your last. It could be someone else's last, and it's just so important that you just squeeze the hell out of the ones you love, man, and just hold them close. Be so thankful that you have a roof over your head, food on the table. I could have no guitars, anything else, and life's about perspective. And I have yet to do without, and that is in a large part due to my family. So if you are watching this, I love you guys so much. And if you're alone this holiday season, hopefully this brings you, I don't know what emotion it would bring you, but I just want to tell you guys, without knowing you, I love you, and God loves you, and I hope that you're doing well. And feel free to stick around, watch some of my other episodes. It's usually a lot of comedic relief, whether you're laughing at me, with me, or my jokes if you even find those funny. But again, guys, I just want to say that I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. That'd be Thanksgiving, Christmas, or whatever. If you're alone this holiday season, don't think that you are. People love and care about you. So until next time, guys, do whatever it is you do. Speaking of, my girlfriend asked me last night, she was like, what does that mean exactly? Do whatever it is you do. I'm like, babe, it's like a lot of the things that I say, not any of it really makes any sense, but it makes sense to me. So do whatever it is you do. Until next time, guys, Kyle, out.